Well, let's talk about the media, because you mentioned this a moment ago, Ian. Check us out. When you Google search riots right now, my friends, those of you who are not watching, just listening, we know that riots erupted in Minneapolis. We know that people are scared. The jurors are scared that if they give, I think this was expressed in the trial during jury selection, that if they say not guilty for Chauvin, the city is going to burn to the ground. What you need to understand is it's not just about whether or not Chauvin gets freed or goes to prison. There's 3 charges. Chauvin can be acquitted on 1, 2, or 3, or none. And that means out of all the potential scenarios and everything we've seen, I would be willing to bet you will get a headline that says, Derek Chauvin acquitted in the murder of George Floyd. And then it'll say, he was convicted on 3rd-degree murder and manslaughter, but acquitted in 2nd degree. And they use the most shocking headline, acquitted in the murder of, because they want you to freak out. With that, the media knows exactly what they're doing, and I can prove it. By simply go and Google, I gotta say, whatever their system is, whether it's intentional or not, is totally in on it. Right now, there's riots happening in Minneapolis. And guess what story you get when you go to Google and you type in the word riots? There it is. The first result out of 17 million. 9 hours ago, the Washington Post headline: data about the Capitol rioters serves another blow to the white working class Trump supporter narrative. What? This was 3 months ago.
They need the milk.
I mean,
we just had riots the other day.
Yeah, I mean, there's been riots going on in Portland for
a year.
Like every night. I know that I've seen stuff about it in the past month, and they're still talking about the Capitol riot.
Why?
Because the Orange Man is very bad, Ian. Don't you know?
Okay, your point is made.
The Orange Man. He's very bad, and people cannot forget that he is a very bad orange man.
How is it that Google, 17 million results, the top post, it's data about the cap, and then underneath it, people also searched for riots in Minnesota.
Why would they search for that?
Could you imagine being in Minnesota and being like, you're hearing bangs and screaming, and you're like, what's happening? So you go on Google and type it in. It's like Capitol riots. You go, I don't care about that.
It's ridiculous that you have to specify. It is ridiculous that you have to specify what riots when it comes to a news post. Like, which ones? Though. Which has it been? Is the ones that have been going on in Portland? Is it the one that happened at the Capitol? Is it the one that's happening? I mean, it's ridiculous.
Hold on. You ready for the best part?
Sure.
I'm not done.
Give it to me.
I'm not done.
Give it to me.
The first post, when you search for riots, is not Black Lives Matter. It's Capitol riots. Then you have people also searched for Newsweek, DW, and National Review talking about Minnesota. But these aren't the results for riots. These are people also searched for riot in Minnesota. Google is letting us know these 3 results are suggestions not based on the search term riots. And guess what the actual second listing is in the search term riots right now, as we literally had riots yesterday. Well, the first one was the Capitol, and the second one is from CNN 1 hour ago. Trump State Department appointee facing Capitol riot charges, released from jail. What's the third? Clear the Capitol, Pence pleaded. What's the fourth? You're going to die tonight. Body cam footage shows Capitol riots.
Don't forget.
And then, number 5, TMZ, Dante Wright.
Oh, not News Guardian.
TMZ got it right.
TMZ.
It is the 5th result right now, a day after the city was being ransacked and looted and there's tear gas and fires. They're still talking about the Capitol 3 months ago.
I suppose that it is fair to point out that this speaks to a point that you've made multiple times about the media loving Donald Trump and losing the revenue that he generated for them.
Yeah.
Because nothing in the past 10 years has gotten clicks like, the Orange Man being very bad. But
just why aren't they cognizant of this fact where they can just say, well, we have to move on? So like, what am I talking about on my main channel, Timcast? Last year, I'm like, Democrats, Republicans, election laws, what's happening, all very election related. And I get people going like, all you do is talk about politics now. You just talk about cultural issues. I'm like, dude, what's the big thing going on right now? Now, we're outside the election, and what am I talking about? Chauvin trial. Mm-hmm. I've got like 4 out of the past 5 videos about the Chauvin trial because this is the big impact. It's where the news is going. It's what's important. I'm not talking about Trump. Trump used to be seriously in like my tags. First word, because like it was always Trump. It was always something with Trump. And even I was like, geez, I'm tired. This guy's sucking up the air. Now we're in a new space. There's news happening. People want to know what's happening and what do you think about it. So for people come to me, they're like, Tim, tell me what you think about this, because most people already know what's going on. You've seen the news article yourself. You talk to your friends about it. You go online to find commentary, to maybe think of something or hear something you didn't think of yourself. I do this, right? So now people are going and they're going to Google and they're going to type in riots. What's happening? Enter. The 5th search result was TMZ, and it was the first talking about Dante Wright. Do you know what the 6th is? Capitol rioter, ex-NYPD cop stunned. He's being held with inner city criminals. New York Post. It's not just the left. The New York Post is a conservative outlet. They're the ones that broke the Hunter Biden laptop story. Even then, 11 hours ago. Amazing. And you know what's really funny? The next one is about Kenosha. It's remarkable to me that if you search for riots, you are not getting served information about what happened in Minnesota. And it's primarily because many of the big mainstream news sources that dominate search results ain't talking about it.
Do you cross-check DuckDuckGo? Do you search with DuckDuckGo ever?
No. I usually don't even use Google to find stories. I, go through various news sources, and I use Twitter, and I kind of curate.
I can't get it up on my phone. I'm interested to see if you search riot on DuckDuckGo.
That's a good point. Let me see if
Why can't you get it up on your phone?
I don't know how to switch it in my Brave browser on the fly. I'll check into it though.
All right, maybe DuckDuckGo's. I'm not saying I'm not blaming Google necessarily.
Right.
So the first result is recent news: massive riots in Minnesota. Minnesota riots clear the Capitol. So the first two in recent news on DuckDuckGo is Minnesota.
So it could be.
Hold on. Then we get general riot, not even news. So after that, it's like definition of riot, not even news. But let me click news to make sure I'm being absolutely fair.
Right. Games.
Number one, when you go to riots, all DuckDuckGo, massive riots in Minnesota. Click the news tab. The first result, massive Minnesota riots. Massive riots in Minnesota. The second one, several Minnesota businesses looted. The third, clear the Capitol. So they still have some of these stories, but DuckDuckGo is prioritizing better, in my opinion.
Could be the Google algorithm is just tainted towards trash bait, flash bait or whatever. Or it could be that Larry and Sergey are political. I mean, those guys run Alphabet. They're basically the owners of Alphabet.
It's the trash bait. We know that Google has a news source ranking where they, I think a bunch of conservative outlets don't appear in search, particularly Breitbart. I think Breitbart's omitted. And I think we saw this leaked, actually. I think it was Veritas or somebody leaked where it's here's the Google blacklist of all the websites they don't allow to appear in search or are limited. For a while, even my YouTube channels were. And then it wasn't until on this show I said, hey, my YouTube channels are blacklist. They removed it. So I'm like, Google must be listening.
They're listening.
But this is what's happening. Google, you know what I think it is? I think it's like a toilet being flushed. And all the turds are being swirled towards the middle. So what happens is Google, I believe genuinely, and from their own bias, I'm not saying they're not doing things wrong. They think they're genuinely doing the right thing. They're like, we got to get rid of this fake news. Let's make sure we only prop up, CNN, Washington Post, MSNBC, CBS, ABC, NBC, etc., New York Times. Those outlets are then suffering. Their ratings are collapsing. Their subscriptions are down. So they're like, just make Trump, 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 Trump. So when we're 3 months out from the Capitol riots or protests or insurrection, whatever you call it, they're still doing it because here's what happens. Like many of the grifters, the people who are all about just pandering to the tribe, the news outlets built up an audience of angry establishment Democrats and leftists. If they come out now and say something, they're worried they will lose money. So they're like, they're probably sitting there. I've been in these editorial meetings. I imagine they all sit down and they're at the table and there's someone on the phone, some editor or some boss. They're like, okay, so what are the stories that we got? And they're like, well, we had those riots yesterday in Minnesota. And they're like, well, we haven't gotten a resolution yet. Why don't we hold off on that one? Oh, we can talk about the Capitol. Some of these guys are getting arrested. Capitol's great. Let's talk about the Capitol. And what you don't hear in the actual words, what underlines this is the boss going, if we talk about the Minnesota stuff, we're going to piss off a lot of our subscribers and lose money. Capitol, now that's money, and that's safer for us. Let's go with that one.
Yeah, I mean, that seems like a reasonable take, especially considering a lot of the more progressive news outlets are run by people that are not as interested in progressive issues as they are in the bottom line. You know, when siding with your audience is the primary driver, you know, you don't want to focus on things that will upset them or drive them away.
Do you think they were like, well, there were riots, so let's write a story with that flash word in it? And then so they said, okay, we got to write a story about riots because riots are popular right now. There's going to be a lot of riot search results. So then they picked the most trashiest riot, and they're like, let's write about the January 6th. Or is it just they've been writing about that crap anyway?
I hadn't thought about that, but maybe they do. I think that I would look in the next couple days to see what happens if there are a lot, or if there continue to be, because they didn't know that there were going to be riots today 2 days ago, and some of the stuff that Tim was pulling up was from yesterday or the day before or whatever. The riots have started off today, I believe, so, or at least the ones in Minnesota, because of the cops' bad shoot.
Would you like to play a game?
Yes,
I would.
Would you like to play a game?
Click here.
So I pulled up 2 progressive sources.
Okay.
This is not science. This is just me pulling up 2 progressive sources, then MSNBC and Fox News, to see what they're talking about, and it's exactly as I thought. First, we have Slate.com. What's their headline story? Inflation is about to look freaky. Slate.com is a leftist publication. You'd think they'd be talking about something. We got over here a small little, blurb on the left. Is Derek Chauvin's defense flailing? The answer to that question is no, by the way. But the big story isn't about Minnesota. In fact, I don't even think I see anything on Minnesota. All right, okay. Well, Slate's not the biggest. Let's try Vox. Yeah. VOX. Vox.com. Okay. Let's jump over to Vox. And what do we see for the main #1 story? The hottest number in conservation is rooted more in politics than science. Why the U.S. egg industry, the Christian right, the Chauvin trial feels momentous, Georgia companies banding together, natural-born citizens, Biden's plan, the bizarre push. Where's the Minnesota riots? Okay, hold on. Now, Fox News. Now, we know Fox News is going to be talking about the riots,
Rupert
right?
Murdoch.
All right, pull up Fox News. The top story is city manager fired for demanding due process for cop in deadly shooting. Mayor takes control of police. Okay, so we got Dante Wright from Fox News. It's actually, I wouldn't say it's right biased, but they're just saying the cop demands due process and got fired. That's fairly neutral, but they are talking about it, and they're talking about it in a positive light, right?
I mean, sort of.
You think it's a little biased?
Well, no, it's just that nowadays the Constitution is a right-leaning issue. It's not like the left doesn't give a crap about the Constitution.
All right. Really. Well, just below this on the front page of Fox News, bracing for violence. Live updates. Curfews in effect across Minnesota. Crowds swarm NYC streets. All right, well, the 2 progressive sources weren't talking about it at all. Fox News is. Now, what do you think MSNBC has to say?
Nothing good.
MSNBC, top story. Yamashita Alcindor. Dante Wright's shooting is a recurring nightmare for Black Americans. It's exactly what I thought it was going to be. I thought the progressive outlets would probably blurb this somewhere, but not really talk about it. And the big networks were going to choose their position. Fox News, this is bad, prepare for violence. MSNBC, it's a nightmare what's happening, not referencing the nightmare for everybody else as their city burns. So, you know what I like to say? I guess one thing I can give credit to what we do here. I tweeted the cop should be in jail. Like I already said, whatever comes out of that gun, that's your responsibility. Yeah. I'm not saying murder charges because I don't think that's not going to stick. There was no intent, but she screwed up. And I had a bunch of lefties saying, your followers sure are going to hate this one, Tim. And I'm like, I don't care. Like, what?
People don't know. People that aren't involved in the gun world at all, they don't know how people that are involved in the gun world think.
Right.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, conservatives, I think, who are more concerned about Black Lives Matter and rioting are going to be less pro-2A. Libertarians, who are very, very staunchly pro-2A, and not big L libertarians, just libertarian in general, are going to look at this and be much more about gun rights.
Yeah, if you're pro-2A, especially if you're a younger person that's pro-2A, the idea of being exclusionary when it comes to your pro-Second Amendment attitude, that is old person stuff. That is FUD talk. Like seriously, that is not what you see when you talk to people that are pro 2A nowadays.
You're saying they want it across the board.
It's a very inclusive inclusive thing. You've got people like Maj Touré, and you got people like Colion Noir out there, really representing, representing black people that have just as much love for the gun world as anyone else, or as any white people do. So
if you tell me that this dude, in Dante Wright was a violent criminal who should be in prison and all that stuff, I'm like, I don't think you're actually pro to it. I think you're just a tribalist.
Yeah.
If you say, look, man, he shouldn't have resisted arrest. The cop, I understand what happened. I agree. You're right. However, he should be allowed to have his gun.
Yeah, it shouldn't have been an issue in the first place.
So, but here, we'll just reiterate this point, because for this segment, Dante Wright should have just been arrested. He should have put his hands behind his back, and then someone could have advocated for him.
Yeah.
Because then they would have been like, is the only thing he's being charged with is that he was carrying a gun? I'm pretty sure the Second Amendment says the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. What is his crime? And then you sue, he would have had standing to make a challenge, maybe up to the Supreme Court. And then he would have been exonerated, and it would have made the whole country better for everybody. Yeah. Shouldn't have resisted. He shouldn't have been criminalized in the first place for his right to bear arms. So it's a layered thing, it is. But, long story short, this is what we get from the media. Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to see the full show, come back to this channel, youtube.com/TimcastIRL, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., where you can leave comments and super chat, and we actually will read your comments on the show. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and if you want exclusive members-only content, segments you can't get anywhere else, go to timcast.com, become a member, and we even have full bonus episodes. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.